NFC East, let's go!
Oh my God.
Since the Sandbox fans, we're back continuing the schedule predictions. And you know, of course, before we get into it, we have to remind you, August 17th, the Orient Heights Yacht Club, for our 5-year celebration. You get to see a live show, live Uncle Tony and Young Sinatra performance, new merch. We got some food. Sammy Carlos is hooking it up. Gonna have some adult beverages there, so make sure you guys bring some cash for the bar.
Cash,
Yeah,
stones.
Yes, and come and have a good time. Come hang out with us, and getting towards the back end of the summer, we're really excited to have you guys. So just always have to remind you guys, August 17th, to come and join us. But the NFC East schedule predictions, Tom, we only have the West after this.
I know.
After taking a 3-4 week hiatus, we kind of moved through these.
I might have to skip the AFC West.
Yeah, yeah. The way everything's working out in Twansfield, you guys will learn a little bit more about that in the Cowboys today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of these back end divisions just lost a lot of love for Twan. So
It is. It's just preface. We're getting to these back end divisions, and some of the games have already been decided for them by other divisions. But at the end of the day, the records still look good. There just might be wins and losses shifted in different places.
All right, well, you got Washington first. I don't have them having a crazy season, but a lot of new things going on for the Commanders.
I think people are very high on the Commanders this year. I'm seeing it everywhere. It's like, when everyone decides they want to pick a sleeper team and they all kind of end up picking the same one for the same season,
Yeah.
and it doesn't work that way?
Yeah.
Welcome to your 2024-25 Washington Commanders. Starting off with a loss against Tampa Bay. But hold on, it gets a little encouraging. They get 2 wins in a row, one against the Giants. Hold on. One against the Giants, one against Cincy, but after that, dropping a game to Arizona. 2-2 to start. I think people are going to go, holy shit, Washington's 2-2 to start, not 0-4. Don't worry. The Giants will be okay. Don't worry. Beating Cleveland. So this was one of the games that I went, dude, it just feels like a smelly game that Washington's going to somehow pull off. I think Cleveland might struggle with the running quarterbacks with how good their pass rush actually is. It might and they like to play man too a lot. So I just think that is a recipe for Jaden Daniels to run for 100+. But I do have them losing to Baltimore, beating Carolina, and then losing 2 in a row to Chicago and New York. So why don't you take us all the way to the Giants game? To this point, I think I have them going. It's 4-5.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can. What I will say is I'll always put the reminder out that as long as Daniel Jones has been the quarterback for the New York Giants, and we don't even know if that's going to be the case, but Washington has been the little brother to the bad New York Giants. So it's just tough to hear, like, week 2 that's going to change. I'm not expecting that early, but, maybe around week 9 things could be different. But through the first 7 weeks, I think we're going to see a lot of that unfamiliarity kind of come together. I know they're going to have training camp, mini camp, like the preseason, everything to kind of work through the kinks, but seeing real NFL speed for a quarterback who I feel like is just kind of going to be tossed into it, I feel like is going to be, adaptation for him, like no doubt. And this was a guy that Daniels was the guy I was most high on for the entire quarterback class. So I actually think like this is a good move, good coaching move for Washington. I think it's the right quarterback move. I think they have offensive pieces to complement, that offense right away. And they never have like the worst offensive line in the world. So that's something to keep in mind. But, we'll see like if that defense can help keep them in games. I only have Washington winning 1 game through the first 7 weeks, and that comes in week 4 at the Cardinals. I think that's a tough game for both of those teams realistically, but I just think Washington, after losing 3 probably close games in a row the first 3 weeks of the season, I think that they'll end up sneaking one. But after that, I have them winning 2 straight. So week 8 versus the Bears and week 9 versus the Giants, there's the win. After 8 weeks, they start to click together. I think that's
on the road in New York?
Look, I don't think the road matters, like home away, like in the division games. Yeah, I really don't think that matters. Like you have the familiarity playing there from the years prior, whatever the case may be. After that win versus the Giants, a loss versus the Steelers, and then a win Thursday Night Football at the Eagles. So, look, like these road games, like I feel like those are huge wins, being able to go on the road and beat, division opponents and things like that. But the losses just stack up right after that. A loss versus the Cowboys, loss versus the Titans. You get the bye week, and then 3 in a row before they win the last game of the season versus Dallas. Has Washington at 5-12. I think you see signs. It's not ideal that they go on huge losing streaks, multiple losing streaks through the season, but winning 3 division games, I feel like Washington might feel pretty okay like with that and know that there's development here. And Look, roster-wise, I actually don't think that they're like a 5-win football team. I think they're
Right.
probably a little bit closer to, 7 and things like that. But with a lot of things being new, schematics, coordinators, I just feel like there's a lot of change there. But I think that they have some players that can win games for them this year.
Steve, we got a close final record for them. I do have them sneaking a win against Pittsburgh. Again, just an awkward win that they're going to get. But I do have them losing 5 in a row after that to Philly, Dallas, Tennessee, New Orleans, Philly again. So I do have them getting swept by Philly, getting a BS win over the Falcons, and then losing to Dallas in Dallas, finishing 6-11. Again, something to build off.
Yeah.
But the people that are saying, don't sleep on Washington, sneaky wild card team, I want a little bit of what you're smoking, because I don't know what you're seeing in that. Yes, they got the roster, but at the end of the day, if football was won by rosters, San Fran would be a 3-time Super Bowl champion.
No, absolutely. And with all of that being the case, like, are you expecting, more progression from like a Brian Robinson as far as like the running back position goes? And where do you really see him sitting as far as like a yardage and usage total?
I think they need to run him into the ground to make Jaden Daniels comfortable. He's a powerful, physical, strong running back. I see 1,100 on the ground, maybe 1,200. Don't see him get too overly involved in the pass game.
I just think they're going
to run into issues where they're not winning so much that it's going to take away from some of his yardage totals in some of those games. I
just didn't know if you thought with adding a guy like Austin Eckler and then obviously, Ertz at like the tight end position, if that would like change the offense from being, a run first kind of identity to just kind of more of like a West Coast, like you have your schematics, you have your games where you run a little bit more, you have your games where like they have a big enough wide receiver, a talented enough wide receiver room to be a pass heavy offense as well. So I just wanted to kind of get like your thoughts with that.
They have a lot of pieces, but if I'm being real, like I don't think we're going to see so much volume out of Eckler. I think Eckler's there to help make Jaden Daniels comfortable at the quarterback position. I think he's older now, but he's almost 30.
Is this a guy
that age?
That like are you drafting Brian Robinson before Eckler in fantasy football?
I think so, dude. I really do think so. Brian Robinson's getting the touchdowns too, if I'm being honest. I think that Eckler's going to have some games where he catches 7 passes for 55 yards, but then he runs the ball 5 times for 20 yards, and like that. But they want to give the ball. Brian Robinson's running it 16 times for 80 yards and a rushing touchdown. That's the kind of season I see happening. I think Brian Robinson is overall a better running back than Austin Eckler too. I'm going to say it, and I know that Austin Eckler showed us more in the league thus far.
But he's on the back end.
He's on the back end. Age matters at the running back position. And if you don't know about Brian Robinson, you'll find out. Dude got shot in the leg, came back 8 weeks later, 6 weeks later, whatever. I mean, he's a monster. He's a hard guy to bring down.
I actually think that like 800 scrimmage yards for Austin Eckler would be like a superb season for him, like in this like new role. Yep. And I just feel like, everyone's going to have to do a little bit less if the team really wants to prioritize winning. Yep. I just don't know how that's going to like sit with like all those guys there in like Washington too. So like that's something to keep in mind. But I'm going to move over to the Dallas Cowboys, who we just had Washington finishing the season with. Tough season for Dallas. I feel like last year, I think they had a stronger season last year, if you want me to be honest. And I just think this division isn't going to be, top heavy or star-studded. I actually have 3 teams in this division finishing with a 9-8 record. So I think it's going to be really competitive, and we'll start to see teams from the NFC North have higher win totals, or other teams in the NFC, have some complemented win totals here. But Dallas is going to start the season 2-0. I think that game week 1 versus the Browns is going to be so tough, especially on the road for them. Like if Dallas was home, I would give them a handed win. I think like they have a really close chance of losing this game, regardless of who's at quarterback for the Browns. But 2-0. After that, I lost to the Ravens week 3. I just don't think that they're as disciplined of a football team as the Baltimore Ravens are. Getting a win week 4 versus the Giants. Obviously, hoping that that's not the case as a Giants fan. Let's go. But I just think like that's realistically how it shakes out. A loss week 5 versus the Steelers on Sunday Night Football. That's going to be a good game to watch. I'm excited for that one. And then a win week 6 versus the Lions. We saw how that game kind of shook out last year, a couple of times. And, the Lions are going to be a really competitive team. Like the Cowboys are a football team that have high expectations. So would be interesting to see how that one works out. But I feel like the most important thing there is it's in Dallas. That's huge for them. So at the bye week, that has them at 4-2. Pretty solid stuff for the Cowboys.
Dallas is a tough schedule, man. You look at some of those games, Ravens. They got the Browns week 1, which I think is a nightmare matchup for them. You got the Browns, you got the Ravens, you got Pittsburgh, you got Detroit, you got San Fran, you got Atlanta, Philly, Houston. Like, that's just the first, 10 weeks?
You have them starting 0-6?
No. I don't have them starting 0-6, but I do have them starting 2-5, 2-6, 2-8.
2-8. Through the first 10 weeks.
Do I think it's actually going to be 2-8? No. I think there will be a couple wins sprinkled in there. The record that I have for them holds up. But like I said, Dallas's games were kind of chosen for them already in other parts of the season.
So let's make sure you guys understand this a little bit, right? Like when we're doing these schedule predictions, not only are we going through every single team, every single division and giving them a win total, but we have to stay consistent with those wins and losses throughout the other divisions.
Yep.
So week 1 versus the Browns, like let's just talk about that one specifically. If I gave Dallas this win as part of the Browns schedule predictions, I also have to give them a loss. So if you don't do your whole entire list and get to see what those records are before we record them, then you're kind of just stuck with doing that. So, just a little bit of a learning curve here for Twan, but I think like that's just something that you'll be able to. Yeah, it absolutely is. But I mean, it's not like it's not realistic. Like an injury happens for Dallas and like 2-8, 2-10 can happen.
Dude, and I can see a situation in which the season's going poorly, very poorly. McCarthy gets canned. There's somebody that I know would just take the call.
Yeah.
Bill would take the call.
Do you think? I just feel like there's too much power there.
I think Bill looks and he goes, "You want me? This is what you get." And I think Jerry could look at him and say, "I need a Super Bowl before I croak in 2 years. So fine, Bill, fine, do your thing." And I think they could go on a run at the end of the season. And that's why, Steve, I have Dallas finishing with an 8-9 record. A tough start, but finishing with an 8-9 record, I don't think they're making the playoffs. Okay. I think this year is written in the stars. Dallas has been good for a couple of years in a row now. This is the year where they're going to seriously skid. All the questions are coming on. Is it Dak? Is it the coaching? Is it this? And they're going to blame McCarthy. That's how it's going to go. They're going to blame McCarthy when the number one guy to blame is Jerry Jones. But they're going to blame McCarthy. Micah's not going to be happy. It's going to be a shit show in there. But next year, they might be able to turn it around. I think this is going to be a tough year for Dallas. They're going to win some division games. They are going to lose a lot of these really hard games that they have to play. They're not going to beat a team like the Ravens. They're not going to beat the Lions. The Lions are one of those teams that maybe they could, but with how the game went at the end of the game last year, the Lions have that game circled on the calendar.
I'm sure.
They got to play Houston. They got to play, again, you're playing Philly twice. You're playing Cincy. You're playing Tampa. Like, these are not easy wins.
Yeah.
It's not like they're going through, Jacksonville, Tennessee. Like, they're not playing all these easy teams.
Absolutely. So after that 4-2 start, I'm going to walk us through the back end of the schedule. 49ers have Dallas as now, but they're gonna beat Dallas, and that's gonna be a loss on Sunday Night Football in San Francisco. Maybe if it was in Dallas, I'd feel a little bit more optimistic, but I realistically don't on the road here. A win at the Falcons. Don't think that that's an easy game by any means. I think the Falcons will play them pretty well at this point. They should be fully acclimated by Week 9. A loss to the Eagles in Week 10, and then winning 2 in a row. Monday Night Football versus the Texans. Look, we saw all the smack talk between Stroud and Parsons through the offseason. I think, not that a defender has a little bit more control because the quarterback literally touches the ball every single snap, but I just think it'll be a little bit easier for Parsons to, make his own success in that game rather than, CJ Stroud, if you want me to be honest here. I think Parsons could realistically get 2-3 sacks in this game. Mm-hmm. If he can have that production continued through the second half of the season, because we saw, continuously through these last 2 years, 6 weeks, Micah Parsons is the best defensive player in football, and then the next 10 weeks, it's like, where the fuck did this guy go? So
who's your early depoy choice? I think I remember who you picked.
Yeah, I'll save it when we get to the West. We'll say he's coming from the AFC West.
Okay.
I think we talked about this a little bit prior.
I think so. I wanted to make sure that I thought the same thing.
But Parsons, I think, is still going to be a guy that's in that conversation for sure. But after that win, Monday Night Football with the Texans, a win at the Commanders, that's going to be a tough game, division game. 2 losses in a row, Giants Thursday Night Football and Bengals Monday Night Football. Just think Dallas is going to kind of run out of steam a little bit at this time. This is weeks 13 and 14, so I'm pretty sure that week 13 game is Thursday Night Football and Thanksgiving. think everyone's going to think, oh, Dallas is going to be, playing the Thanksgiving game. They got it all written up. Giants defense is going to absolutely dominate in this one. I think that's the only way the Giants can really compete throughout the NFC, if you want me to be honest. A win versus the Panthers, a loss Sunday Night Football versus Tampa. I think Tampa matches up really well against Dallas.
Yep.
And then splitting the last 2 games of the season, the W in Philly, Buck game. That's a crazy, crazy game, week 17, and a loss week 18 versus Washington. Has Dallas at 9-8. Like I talked about, I have 2 other teams in the East going 9-8. Really, really competitive division this year. But I don't think, it's going to be the 12, 13 wins that we saw from Dallas and Philly through the past couple of seasons. And I don't think that the Giants are a 10-win football team, but do I think that they can scrap 9 with the defense that they have? Yeah, we'll talk more about that as we get through their schedules.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you had them 9-8. I had them 8-9, not too far off. Again, I just don't feel too good about Dallas, but I'm going to dive right into the Eagles, Steve. Like I mentioned, I think they're going to lose that game in Brazil to Green Bay. I think Green Bay is more equipped to go into a wild environment and win a game. I think they're cleaner between the ears. I think there's less conversations about, what's going on in that room than there are with Philly. But after that, they get right. They get a big win over Atlanta. They lose to New Orleans. They win against Tampa, but then they drop 2 in a row to Cleveland and New York. So tough 2-4 start. But after that, Steve, they get back on their winning ways. They beat Cincy. They take an L to the Jacksonville Jaguars, but they beat Dallas, Washington, L to the Rams, rattle 2 more off. Baltimore, Carolina are both wins. I'm going to go right through. Take an L to Pittsburgh, and now they're not looking too great. They're 7-7, but they finish strong with 3 wins in a row. They get Washington, Dallas, Giants. They win all 3 of those games, and they go on a 3-game win streak before going into the playoffs, winning the division with a 10-7 record. Now they got a little bit of fire under them. Now they're ready to go play. And I don't think the Eagles are winning the Super Bowl. I don't think they're making it to the AFC Championship. But they're going to win the NFC Championship. But they're going to win a playoff game this year. They're not the best team. I think they're great on paper. Paper doesn't always tell the story like we know. But having 3 wins in the division going into the playoffs is a big, big time win.
No doubt. With Philly, I actually only have them losing 2 games through the first 10 weeks. Those 2 losses actually happened week 2, Monday Night Football versus the Falcons. Battle of the Birds. Think that this is going to be a prove-it game. Week 1 might not go the way Atlanta wanted it to with the way my schedule predictions work out. Cousins still getting acclimated. Maybe not even fully healthy at that point in time. But this is a big game, man. After the Eagles get a big win week 1 versus the Packers, I just think, they're going to overlook the Falcons so easily. Oh, we beat the Packers like they're this big team. Like we were in Brazil. Like that was sick. And then just not be prepared week 2. And I think that's the reason why they drop it. But the other game that I have them losing is week 7 at the Giants. I think that's a tough game. Reason why I don't think that anybody in MetLife, in the metropolitan area, like just in general, New York, Philly, whatever the case may be, everybody's going to be watching the TV this game because Saquon's return to New York, I think it's going to be a statement for Saquon. It's going to be a statement for the Giants. I just think our defense is a little bit better suited to kind of win that matchup this year, like I really do. You asked me last year, and Saquon was on Philly a year ago. Oh, my God, he would have ran all over the yard on us. But I think that we're well prepared for them, and the Eagles are still going to be, a team that the Giants need to get through if we want to be competitive in this division. It's always scary to me whenever I give the Giants, an above 500 record. 9-8 isn't a crazy record, but above 500 because usually when they do, they have the worst season as possible. but I just can't see. Even if Daniel Jones get hurt, I feel like Drew Lock is a perfect supplement for him going into that lineup. Yeah, offensively, losing Saquon's going to hurt, but Neighbors could be the most electric player that we've had here at the wide receiver position since Odell. So I'm really excited for that. But I think the Eagles are good enough to beat teams like the Bengals, Jaguars on Sunday Night Football, and they're going to end up splitting with the Cowboys, which I feel like will have huge playoff implications. But after only 2 losses through those first 10 weeks, I actually have them dropping 5 straight tough games, dude. Versus Washington Thursday Night Football at the Rams in California. I think that's a really tough game. At the Ravens, that's a third game in a row, like really tough. I just don't think that they're ready, after those 2 tough games prior. And, weeks 12, 13, 14, they could be experiencing some injuries. This is an upset game. I actually think that they can overlook the Panthers even after 3 losses in a row. I think the Panthers are going to beat them in week 15 versus Steelers. Like, the Steelers are going to need to prove themselves at this point in time in the season. But the last 3, I have them going 2-1, 2 division wins versus Washington and the Giants, and a loss versus the Cowboys, which has the Eagles at a 9-8 record. Also with a 3-3 division record. Every team in the NFC East that I have going 9-8 is also going to have a 3-3 record. So the win totals on those games are going to be so crucial because that differential is going to be the difference of a playoff spot. 3 teams with a 9-8 record are not going to make the playoffs from one division. It's not going to happen.
Yep, no shot.
But going over to the Giants, look, I think they have an easy first 2 weeks, if you want me to be honest. I know you gave them a loss to the Commanders in week 2. I feel like, getting the Vikings, who are going to be dealing with a lot of unfamiliarity and with a defense as a strength, and the Vikings obviously having, offense as a strength, I just feel like the team that commits the least amount of turnovers in this game, could win. And I just think that this is going to be, a big stage for Sam Darnold to return to New York as a Minnesota Viking and have winning expectations on the road week 1. I think that's going to be really tough for him. So 2-0 for the Giants to start. Then following that, 2 losses in a row. A loss at the Browns, a loss Thursday Night Football versus the Cowboys. Things aren't going to be pretty in New York, and it's not all going to come together all at once. I do think that traveling to Seattle is going to be a crazy tough environment. I just think the Giants' defense might get the better of that quarterback position. Look, if Geno Smith is the starter, we're familiar with Geno Smith. He was a quarterback for the Giants. He legit ended the man of the year fucking streak for Eli Manning, the taking him out of that start streak, which is Ben McAdoo, but we don't need to go there because those are traumatic times.
I can feel it.
Yeah. The Giants aren't going to beat the Bengals. I'd love to sit here on paper and say that they are, but our offense just can't go head-to-head with Joe Burrow if Joe Burrow is healthy at that point in time. So at this point in time in the season, 3-3 through the first 6 weeks and 2 primetime games, I'm happy at 500 through 6 weeks.
Steve, so you're not going to love this. I got a tough start for the Giants. 0-3 start. But the next 4 games, they go 3-1. So I have them dropping those 3 games: Minnesota, Washington, Cleveland.
Minnesota.
I think.
I know you already chalked it up.
Right. I chalked it up. I think Minnesota looks at them and they bounced us out of the playoffs a couple years ago. They kind of. What's his name?
It's a different team, though.
Different quarterback. It's not that different. And running back, but.
I don't even know Hawkinson was there at that time.
Yeah.
Was he?
Yeah.
That might have been the first season.
I think it was. That's what I think.
That he got traded there.
That season. He got traded in the middle of the season.
Yes.
But after that, I have them getting 2 wins in a row. Dallas, and I do have them going into Seattle. I just think they're going to win that game. It just feels that way to me. Like you said, their defense is very good. The offense is the questions. Malik Neighbors can be electric. I think he is going to be electric.
You think he's going to be the best rookie wide receiver, or you think Marvin Harrison got that? I think it's very likely that Malik Neighbors can be.
It definitely can be. I wouldn't put a bet on either of them because I think that they're both neck and neck for it.
If I'm betting offensive rookie of the year, my money's on either one of those 2 guys.
Probably. Who else could it be?
Quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Odunze.
You know they love to give it a fucking quarterback.
No, I know.
One of those quarterbacks plays well. Caleb Williams goes 9-8. They're just going to give it to him.
Stop it. Not happening.
It's not. I have him going 7-10.
Bo Nix wins 7 games. That could potentially do it.
No fucking way.
No,
dude.
not a chance.
They hate Denver.
Yeah, not a chance.
I do also have them dropping that game to Cincy, but I have them beating Philly.
Okay.
So I do have them going 3-4 to start the first 7.
I also have them beating Philly in that week 7 game, dropping 2 straight after that. Monday Night Football, traveling to the Steelers. Just think that they're going to be a little bit better of a disciplined football team than we are. Yep. I'm hoping that, we're not a heavy penalized team. We don't have too many mistakes. That's the hope and the expectations. And then a loss versus the Commanders week 9, staying consistent with their schedule. We get the Panthers overseas, so I think that's going to be an interesting game, but I'm really happy that the opponent is the Panthers, and that's also going to be a game that leads into the bye week.
Is that Germany?
Yeah, I think it is a Germany game.
God, the NFL's punishing Germany.
Yeah. Look, hey, I'll be up early. I'll be watching that game. I'm excited for it. Just to watch the Giants get a win at 9:30 in the morning, sipping some espresso, making a bacon, egg, and cheese or something like that. Knowing that we're going into the bye week, and we're going to be sitting above 500, 5-4. I feel like that's a pretty good start 5-5, still 500 through 10 weeks. Like, I'll take that. Like, coming from multiple losing seasons in a row, that's optimism right there.
Big time. I got him same way. I got him 5-5 through 10 weeks.
Going into the bye week, yeah. But after that, I think this is when things start to change for the Giants. I only have them dropping 3 games the rest of the season, and those losses are going to be Tampa, week 12, right after the bye. Just think that they might be a little bit of a better team or a little bit more disciplined. Interested to see how everything works out with Baker, though, because if he's not going to be that guy he was last year for them, to think that this is a different conversation, and that's a game that the Giants can absolutely win. Versus the Ravens, we're not going to beat the Ravens. Anthony, I got you there. So, and then week 18 versus the Eagles, I think that game's going to mean so much to Philly. I think that game is, where we got right in the Saquon return game. Going to Philly, they're going to get us in week 18 might be a little bit more important. But I think, there's some big wins there. The Cowboys Thursday Night Football on Thanksgiving, that's a huge win. That's practically a Super Bowl for us Giants fans. The Saints, I think we can easily handle the Saints from my perspective. Interested to see how that works out for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then 16 and 17 at the Falcons versus the Colts. I think that we're a tad better, just, especially looking at the defensive side of the ball than the Falcons. I think we're going to be very, very similar to the Colts, so I think that's going to be a really close game. Hopefully I'm watching that game with Lou and we can just talk some shit.
There you go. Well, Steve, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I do have them going 2-5 after this break. So I think it's just a tough stride. Like Tampa, a tough game. Winnable game. Tampa's winnable, but it's a tough one. Have them losing to Dallas because I had them beating them earlier this year. I do think Dallas is just different at home, man. I have them beating New Orleans, but I do have them dropping 2 in a row there. I have them losing to Baltimore. I do have them losing to Atlanta, too. I think Atlanta is a tough out. I know we disagree on Atlanta this year. I just think they're solid. I have them beating Indy, though. So I do have them beating Indy, but losing that last game to Philly, finishing 7-10. And again, not an ideal season. But when you look at the Giants, that defense is a good defense.
Quarterback questions, though.
Big quarterback questions, and at the end of this season, if it does look 7-10 and Daniel Jones doesn't play like a $40 million guy, $45 million guy, you have to cut ties. Yeah. And at that point, it's over. And maybe Dable saves his job with that.
Well, I don't think that was going to be my question. Do you think,
it's Jones or Dable, someone's got to go at the end of the year.
For sure. If it goes below 500.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. With all of that being the case, though, there's a bunch of hot seats around the NFL coming into the season. We could talk about Eberflus as one of those guys.
Yep.
Is Dable a top 3, top 5 hot seat for you, or do you feel a little bit better than the public opinion on Dable?
No, because we got to remember he had a season where the Giants were supposed to go 4-13, and they ended up going 9-8 and making the playoffs and winning a game.
Yeah.
So no. The media will make it that way, but no, I don't think so. I think when you're looking at those guys, I think you're looking at Eberflus. I think you're looking at Sirianni.
Saleh
could be one of those guys. Mike McCarthy's on that seat right now. Let's be real. Mike McCarthy's on that seat right now. I think the other guys, I think Dable's all right now. Okay. I think he's all right. If they know what's good for them. Because I think he's a good coach. I really do think he's a good coach. I think he's just gotten dealt one of those situations that's going to be really tough for anyone to go in there and be electric.
Obviously, I'm a Giants fan, so, I have different expectations and potential thoughts on what we could be, right? I have to think that with a defensive line of Sexy Dexy with the little shuffle he got going on, we add Brian Burns to the mix in, just another year of Kayvon Thibodeau. What do you think this defense can be? And I want to know, out of those 3 guys, who do you think can have the highest sack total, and what can that number be at its highest possible potential? Can the Giants be a top 5 defensive unit? They
can be. They absolutely can be. I'm going to put them in the top 8 because I think they're going to be at 8 because I think there's a lot of really strong defensive units in the league. Number 1 in sacks. It's not going to be Dex because I just think it's just harder coming up the middle to get those sacks, especially when you're getting doubled.
What do you think it's going to be, Tibbs?
I kind of think it's Tibbs. I think another year Tibbs. I think he's a little quicker than Burns too. And I think he's going to be more prone to go. I think they're going to set him up to go after the passer more, where I think they'll have Burns play a little bit more contained sometimes, or he'll be keeping an eye on the running back. He's very good, and every team knows he's very good. Teams know Tibbs is good, but everyone knows, every offensive line, Burns is the unspoken guy where everyone's 2 guys on him at all times. Yeah. But then you go 2 guys on Dex, and I think that leaves Tibbs out a little bit, and I think that's where Tibbs is going to get more success. 11.5 sacks this year.
Same total as last year.
So good number. Upside for more.
I think the
lowest I think he's getting is 9.
I would hope that he gets better than 9. The only thing that I feel like could implicate those numbers is that the assumption is that there's going to be sacks to be like spread around.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
Like I don't think that we gave up what we gave up for Burns and expect him to get 5 sacks. Like
correct.
Yeah, like he should be getting 10 plus. Tibbs should be getting 10 plus. I don't expect Dexy to get 10, but if
he's
he's
clogging
at
up the
8,
middle, exactly. Clogging up the middle too. You got Okereke. Didn't you still have Okereke?
Yes.
Yeah, Okereke can run up the middle sometimes too.
Banks.
So like you got Banks coming off the corner. So
drafted the top safety in the second round.
Yeah. Who's the other safety you got? No, because McKinney's gone.
McKinney's gone, but Jason Pinnock, like he had like a pretty solid play, and I know like there's some high expectations for the cornerback room, like with them being an extremely young unit and things like that. But
Oruarie, is that who you got last year? Amani Oruarie, whatever his name is.
I know we got somebody that came from the Lions. I think that might have been
I think
but I don't think he ended up having like the role that we were expecting him to end up having and things like that. But coming over to the Eagles, with the fantasy implications, I want to talk about Saquon Barkley because I think that he was better fit for a team that was just like, hey, dude, you're gonna get this rock. Like, go and do something with it. I think not only is he going to take a little bit of a hit on that, but I think like people's expectations for what Saquon's going to be, because I still think he's going to be like a guy that's going to be drafted around 2 or 3 in a fantasy perspective, and still likely drafted above Brown and Smith as far as teammates go. I think his number is going to be less. Like, do you think like as far as like 1,100 scrimmage yards is like realistic and attainable? I think that's what it is.
For scrimmage yards, for sure.
I don't think he can get 1,200 rushing. I mean, I think if he breaks some off, I think it's definitely like that. I think he's going to be touchdown heavy. I think he's going to get more touchdowns than what people think in Philly.
He's got a really good O-line too to work with though. So that's the other thing you got to consider. But again, the ball is going to be spread more. It's all going to come down is Philly winning games or not?
Yeah.
If they're winning games, he's going to get the ball more. If they're in really close competitive games, he's going to get the ball, but it's going to be a little bit more in the passing set, and that's when A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are going to get the ball a little bit more too. So it's going to come down to how they're playing. I do think they're going to use Saquon as a way to relieve Jalen Hurts from running the ball. So I don't think you're going to see as much rushing yards from Jalen Hurts this year. Might be in my fantasy beware. Keep your eyes out because, again, depending on where you want to get him, right? If you're going to get him in the, top 5 quarterbacks draft, you're going to get him in the 4th round, I'd say, dude, don't do that.
Yeah,
do not do that. You're not going to get the you might get a couple of 1-yard touchdowns, but you are not going to get the consistent
tight
10
ends
carries,
and quarterbacks,
65 rushing yards. Like, you're not getting that.
I'm not drafting tight ends and quarterbacks anywhere above 8. Like, I'm really not. Like, me, I'm probably drafting 5 running backs for the first 8 rounds in every single one of my leagues. And I honestly don't care who knows that, who sees that. Like,
you know what's coming.
Yeah, exactly. And
can you stop it is the question.
Exactly. and I got this pretty trophy over here in the back to really back me up and prove otherwise, and obviously being the sandbox champion, waiting to get a new trophy to just add to the collection. I'm really excited about. But we do this shit with fantasy football. I just feel like it's really, I don't want to say easy, but I feel like you can find wide receiver help through the year constantly. After the first 5 weeks and injuries for the running back position, bro, it's shit. Like, you're literally hoping like a guy that has a sprained ankle, like, is literally just going to get in the end zone.
You're literally picking up the backup because you're like, I think this guy's getting hurt next.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, what the hell?
Yeah, legit crazy.
My greatest fleece job, I'm not going to call it a fleece job. This is just knowledge versus not knowledge, is when Kareem Hunt, I think it was, went down for the Browns. Everyone was like, Duke Johnson. Pick up Duke Johnson. I'm like, you guys don't know about the rookie Nick Chubb, brother?
Yeah.
Scooped him up, and everyone's like, oh, fuck, dude. Forgot about him. Like, you didn't know about him. You don't know like that.
And what was that teammate he had coming out of, what was it, Georgia, right? Yeah. What was that teammate that? The New England Patriots.
Oh, Sony? I thought you were talking about Gurley. I'm like, don't disrespect Gurley.
No, I'm not going to do that to Gurley. But I know we won a championship, but the Patriots could have had Nick Chubb, dog. Imagine that.
He would have been nuts.
You guys would have won 10 games, but that's all, just good fun and ball busting and everything like that with Nick Chubb and
still
stuff.
hurt.
Yeah. but before we wrap up this episode, just want to talk about, since we're talking about fantasy football, the fantasy quarterback scenario, right? Jaden Daniels coming in as a rookie. Do you feel like out of all these rookie quarterbacks that he's the most primed to be, a potential fantasy starter for a roster? Or do you think it's Caleb? I think it's Daniels, just adding the rushing ability. I think he can get some more points in maybe garbage time.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's not Penix.
It's not Penix. It's also not Drake because he's not starting. But
yeah.
I'm going to say it's Caleb. I don't think Jaden's that far behind, but I'm not giving up on Caleb Williams just because of all the fucking yapping that's happening in the media. So.
No, yeah, I wouldn't say giving up. I just think, like, with the expectations and everything like that, I think it's very realistic that you could say, I don't want to say that he has a better core, but he might be better coached.
Jaden?
Yeah.
Quinn?
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. You
could
have said me versus Eberflus.
No, but I mean, Kingsbury there too.
You're right. Kingsbury's the OC.
Like, that's what I'm saying with that offense,
Yeah.
Like,
what scares me about Kingsbury, though, is like he had Kyler, and we knew Kyler could run the ball, but Kyler was running the ball after scrambling. He wasn't really like designed running.
I think it's Kyler though. Like, I think he's just like
he's
a
a
little brat, bro. Like, I just think like that's what it is. Like, you hear the way people talk about like certain guys and things like that, and I just feel like that's the common denominator in all of it is like Kyler Murray. But for Arizona, I think they handled it properly.
I hope he grew up. I hope things are better now. I think, again, dude, you got to remember, like, these guys get in the league, dude, they're kids.
Yeah.
They're still kids. We're older than 50% of the NFL.
Yeah, crazy.
It's insane. Like,
Jaylen Brown's my age. He's hoisting trophies and going on parades, and I'm just taking a video of him.
That is insane, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's just crazy to me that they're this young. So I like to give them a little bit more slack. And that's my whole thing with, like, really young guys and going to Vegas. It's like, you got to keep an eye on them close.
Yeah.
Very close. Because if you don't, it just gets fishy. And I think that might have been part of the reason that Brock Bowers was drafted to them. I think that
because he's just a quiet dude, like
dude, farm boy,
about football,
like, yeah. And not that Terry and Arnold isn't, but when they're flipping a coin between the two guys, you got to look at what was it, David Arnett? I think he was playing corner, and then he had his whole scenario, and it's like you look at the same position, and then you just drafted Michael Mayer. I haven't seen Michael Mayer getting into anything crazy, so
No, absolutely. But we're excited for the season, though.
I'm so excited for the season, man. I think it's going to be crazy. There's, again, like I said, this is the season of the shifts. You're going to see teams that were low go up top. You're going to see teams that were top that come down low, starting with the Dallas Cowboys, ending with, in the playoffs, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, we'll see about that. But since the Sandbox fans, this was the NFC East schedule predictions. Thank you guys for all tuning in. Once again, we'll see you August 17th for our 5-year celebration. We gave you the North. We gave you the South. This is the East, and you'll be ready for the West by the time we come back from the 4th of July. You guys know the deal. Peace, love, 5 stars, nothing less.